Hello everyone, you're watching Awaz News. I'm Kubra Ali and I'll be taking you through big news across Canada.
Toronto teacher on home assignment after allegedly taping students to chair. Police charge 25 people, seize $1.7 million worth of drugs in Ontario bust. Wife of Nova Scotia mass killer tells story in public for first time at inquiry. House of Commons industry committee to discuss investigating Rogers outage. Today marks 1-year anniversary of Barrie tornado, 4 homes left to repair. Royal Unibrew buying Toronto-based Amsterdam Brewery for $44 million. COVID-19 hospitalizations in Ontario now at their highest level since late May. Positivity rates also spiking. Toronto food banks see record number of visits in June. Ottawa announces influenza vaccine agreement with GlaxoSmithKline.
Those were the headlines, and now let's jump right into the details.
The federal government has signed a new deal with GlaxoSmithKline for influenza vaccines. Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos announced the contract today in Quebec City, a 4-year pact to produce and deliver domestic pandemic influenza vaccines with 5 one-year options to follow. Canada has had a deal with GlaxoSmithKline for influenza vaccines since 2001. Duclos says the deal includes an option to procure 80 million doses of influenza vaccine if a pandemic occurs and a minimum of 4 million doses annually to be used in publicly funded vaccination programs. Historically, influenza pandemics have occurred every 11 to 40 years, the most recent being the H1N1 pandemic in 2009. The first influenza vaccine deliveries for 2022 are scheduled for September and October. The common law spouse of the man responsible for the Nova Scotia mass shooting began telling her story in public for the first time before an inquiry Friday. The inquiry has heard Lisa Banfield was beaten and badly injured by the killer immediately before he began his shooting rampage on the night of April 18, 2020. She has told police and the inquiry's investigators that she escaped into the woods and later emerged to tell police that her partner was still at large on the morning of April 19, 2020. Earlier this week, the Commission released a document based on evidence provided by Banfield during interviews with the RCMP and the inquiry detailing the killer's long history of violence. During the 13 hours he was at large, the killer fatally shot 22 people, including a pregnant woman and a Mountie. He was shot dead by 2 Mounties on the morning of April 19, 2020. 4 homes still need to be repaired 1 year after a tornado ripped through a Barrie neighborhood, significantly destroying properties and displacing over 100 residents. Environment Canada said the damaged path of the tornado that hit Barrie specifically was about 5 kilometers long and up to 100 meters wide, with maximum wind speeds of 210 kilometers per hour. At least 10 people were taken to the hospital in Barrie and more than 100 residents were displaced by the storm. No deaths were reported. Hundreds of uprooted trees and large amounts of debris were seen on the ground in the aftermath of the storm, and thousands of homes and businesses were temporarily left without power in the area. Destructive tornadoes are not new to Barrie, as a similar twister hit Barrie 36 years ago, killing 8 people and destroying hundreds of homes. Toronto's largest food bank is sounding the alarm after a record number of visits last month. According to the Daily Bread Food Bank, there were 171,631 client visits to food banks in the month of June, and close to 8,000 new clients accessed their services. Prior to the pandemic, food banks were seeing about 60,000 client visits per month. The problem is systematic, and it deals with a lack of affordable housing, a lack of income security, and incomes that are simply not keeping pace with inflation. Food prices, for example, have increased by just under 10% in past year. Hetherington says that works out to be about $1,300 more a year for an average family of 4. In May, Toronto food banks reported about 160,000 client visits per month, with officials projecting that number to rise to about 225,000 client visits. There are now more people in Ontario hospitals with COVID-19 than at any point since late May as a new wave of pandemic driven by BA.5 subvariant continues to worsen. The latest data released by the Ministry of Health on Thursday afternoon reveals that there are now 985 people hospitalized with the disease caused by the novel coronavirus, up more than 38% from this time last week. The number of those patients requiring care in the ICU is also up week over week, but not at nearly the same pace, going from 110 to 118. The 7-day average of cases detected through PCR testing, meanwhile, was 1,439 compared to 1,072 at this time last week. Over the last week, Ontario has added 39 net new deaths to its COVID-19 tally, pushing the number up to 13,493. A Toronto teacher has been placed on home assignment pending an investigation into an alleged incident in which 2 students were taped to a chair in class. In a statement to CTV News Toronto, the Toronto District School Board said the incidents took place in May. According to media reports, the children were students at 7th Street Junior School in Etobicoke and were taped to their chairs. No further details about the allegations have been released by the school board. A spokesperson for the Toronto District School Board said the school took immediate action when it first learned of the allegations by notifying the board's Employee Services Department, the Children's Aid Society, and Toronto Police. The teacher, who is an early childhood educator, has been placed on home assignment pending the outcome of investigation, the board said. In the meantime, we have offered social work support for the students in the impacted class. Ryan Bird said these allegations are very serious and, if true, would be completely unacceptable and could result in serious consequences up to and including dismissal. Toronto police have told CTV News Toronto the incident is not a criminal matter. Police say 25 people are in custody facing a raft of charges after investigators dismantled an alleged drug smuggling ring, seizing $1.7 million worth of drugs such as cocaine and methamphetamine, multiple guns, and several cars. York Regional Police say that beginning in June 2021, officers began watching suspects believed to be involved in drug trafficking. They allegedly operated in York Region, Durham, London, and the Kawartha Lakes area. York Regional Police joined other services from Toronto, the OPP, and London Police in an effort they dubbed Project Entrust. They eventually searched 19 locations and by June 2022 had arrested 25 people. Investigators allegedly seized 7.5 kilograms of methamphetamine, more than a half kilogram of fentanyl, various pills, 2.7 kilograms of cocaine, and $136,000 in cash. Together, the accused are facing 113 charges. Royal Unibrew says it's buying Toronto-based Amsterdam Brewery Company Limited for about $44 million. Denmark-based Royal Unibrew says the acquisition will help its expansion in the Americas by having Amsterdam Brewery supply most of the Canadian market as well as supplementing its supplies to the United States. The beverage conglomerate, which produces drinks under its own royal name, along with owning several brands including Fax Beer, says the localized supplier will reduce demand on its Danish facilities. It says a localized supplier will also reduce supply chain constraints that have increased significantly in the last 18 months, along with cutting transportation costs and the company's CO2 footprint. Royal Unibrew says Amsterdam has about $34 million a year in sales and earnings of around $5 million before certain deductions. The House of Commons Industry and Technology Committee is set to meet today to discuss launching an investigation into the Rogers Communications Incorporated outage. Last Friday's outage lasted more than 15 hours, affecting mobile and internet users, knocking out ATMs, shutting down the Interact payment systems, and preventing calls to 911 services in some Canadian cities. After calling the outage unacceptable, Industry Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne directed the country's major telecom companies to reach agreements on emergency roaming, assisting each other during outages, and a communication protocol to better inform Canadians during emergencies. The NTP has also called for bringing Rogers, Interact, and Champagne to committee.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm Kubra Ali. I'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Have a good night.